I'm sick and tired of culture and or religion being conflated with race. In my mind, it seems ridiculous that it even needs to be stated that these are completely separate things. These days, though, we can't even seem to agree on what reality and facts are, so our arguments and discussions are starting from two or more completely different realms. If I know the Earth is round due to irrefutable scientific evidence, but you're adamant it's flat, we can't even begin to discuss shadow formation or rocket launch and re-entry for landing, or why a sunset has the colours that it does, because we're starting from completely different facts, as it were. How can we therefore have a productive discussion on immigration policy, integration and multiculturalism if almost every mainstream media outlet, and even worse, the general public, who have been brainwashed by that cultural relativist drivel, think that the word racist is an appropriate label for anyone who opens their mouth to discuss these issues and their implications? For those who feel uncomfortable already, I'll throw in the usual caveats that should go without saying. Yes, there are real racists and bigots out there, and yes, we do not want those ideas to propagate. But I do not see the evidence that this is a major problem in Western culture. I do, however, see the risk that these ideas propagating more if we refuse to discuss multiculturalism and cultural and moral relativism honestly. Our society will never be perfect. There will always be some who hold racist, sexist, or bigoted views. But, sunlight is a great disinfectant. And when these ideas are exposed, scrutinised, they can be rejected. And if they're never exposed, and if real concerns are never addressed, societies shift and bad ideas are fostered by the people being told to shut up, and sheltered, really, by those who think that they're helping by shutting down free speech. You're not helping if you shut this down. How can it be properly discussed if we don't talk about it? How can it be dismissed if we don't talk about it? Our societies will never be utopia, and if you are aiming for utopia and zero racism and zero bigotry, or if you're aiming for equality of outcome, you are misguided and probably dangerous. Humans are so varied and flawed that your utopia will only be reached by forcefully removing, also known as murdering eventually, dissenters and shutting down individual freedoms, which is communism and Marxism principles at their finest, really. Humans are so flawed and at our cores so animalistic that it is an absolute miracle that we have societies and cultures around the world that are this tolerant and peaceful and respectful of individual freedom and liberty. Despite what you see in the media and hear from the extreme left, we're at a better place in these Western societies and some Eastern societies as well than we've ever been. For example, in 1820, the vast majority of people in the world lived in extreme poverty, with only the elites enjoying a higher standard of living. Poverty has fallen continuously over the last 200 years thanks to economic growth, and this is according to ourworldindata.org. In that time period, the population has increased sevenfold, and even with this unprecedented population increase, more people were lifted out of poverty than ever in human history. We're talking hundreds of thousands of years. In 1981, 44% of the world lived in absolute poverty. In this last 30-odd years, the decrease in poverty, thanks to free market capitalism in the West and East Asia especially, has led to only 10% of people now living in absolute poverty. This is a huge achievement, yet all we seem to hear in the media and at university is that capitalism is the worst thing ever and that the West is an evil, evil place. It just doesn't add up to me. There are plenty of other biases in the media and our educational institutions I could go into, but I'll save that for another video. When in our past have we ever had it as good as the human race has it now? Of course, let's always strive for better, but this will not come by reducing liberty and freedom of the individual to say what they want to say, and as long as it's not a direct incitement to violence, and to do as they please as long as it isn't physically harming another. It will also not come by pulling down our most successful, peaceful, productive societies, which at this point in time are the societies in the West, like it or not. I'm really sick and tired of hearing how Western culture is shit and to blame for all of the ills of the world. I'm just not buying it, and neither should you. What are people comparing it to? Where would you rather live? I think people in the West have become so detached and are so ignorant of how much better today's mostly Western societies are to live in compared to other societies, including the West, not just 30 years ago. Not only is the question, where would you rather live, but when? 200 years ago? 400 years ago? 1,000 years ago? This right here is the best we've ever had it. And so think twice before you hate on it so much and self-flagellate so much that you tear down what you have, basically, with spite and ungratefulness. This lack of realisation and respect for what our ancestors have toiled to deliver us is leading us down a self-destructive path. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom from slavery, freedom of and from religion are products of a slow process of human enlightenment that the human race has not seen before, and if they had, they were clearly not maintained or were destroyed previously to the detriment of all. Don't be a fool and think that those values are shared by every culture worldwide. They are not, even shared by everyone in the West. Democracy will only keep us safe from those minds that would love to censor speech, enforce blasphemy laws, and trample on our individual freedoms to be, gay or trans or whatever you want to be, as long as those who believe in liberal principles remain the majority in a society. If we do not have respect, but only contempt for what is arguably the best, most conducive to human happiness and safety any culture has ever delivered, what do we care if it gets torn down and replaced with who knows what? What do we care if we bring in other cultures en masse to alter this culture that we so despise for not being absolutely perfect? No, I say culture and not race. I'm a gay New Zealander and I have the real rainbow coalition of friends, but we are all Kiwis. We respect what it means to live in this culture and adopt Kiwi values wholeheartedly. Equal rights and opportunities under the law for all. Doesn't mean equal outcomes, because humans are so flawed and varied, but equal rights under the law. Don't be a fool and think that the land you stand on makes the culture the way it is. It is the people. It is the people who have been brought up with true liberal values, live and let live. It is the people who in their heart of hearts want equality of opportunity for all, including women, minorities and free thinkers. We in the West have gotten so used to this being the norm over the last few generations that we think it is like this everywhere. Think again. Not everyone around the world is running this live and let live software on their brains. This is a fairly new piece of software, even for here in the West. Now, with all this said, what happens if we allow vast numbers of people from different cultures or religions into our societies so rapidly that they don't have time to integrate, to adopt this live and let live equality software onto their brains? What if Pew polls of these new people showed that 89% of them wanted Sharia law, the official law of their country, as is the case for Muslim Palestinians? 91% of Iraqi Muslims also want this, 82% of Bangladeshi Muslims, and 99% of Afghani Muslims want Sharia law. What if Pew polls showed that 94% of these new people want religious courts that fly in the face of Western laws regarding the rights of women and minorities, including gays and trans people, as is the case with Jordanian Muslims? Now, only half, so 51% of these people think Sharia law should only apply to Muslims. So that means half, 49%, will expect these laws to apply to you as well. So even if you are a selfish person who doesn't care if the poor Muslim homosexual down the road gets sentenced to lashes and is ostracised by his community, just know that half of these people would also expect you or me to be subjected to the same punishment if they had the majority vote. Now is probably a good time to pipe up again to help the people squirming to yell racist and bigot. Muslims can be black, white, brown. Muslims can be the full range from ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hizb ut-Tahrir to cafeteria Muslims who enjoy the food and dress style without adhering to the more serious dictates. But I'm talking about statistics here, people. and a poll done on British Muslims show that close to 0% think that homosexuality is okay. Digest that for a second. Again, it's the software running on our brains, not the colour of our skin, that matters here. I'm not a fan of any religious software, to be honest. I can hear the cultural relativists yelling, "The Crusades, the Inquisition." Yes, agreed, extreme religious software running on your brain is not conducive to a productive dialogue or peaceful society. We will still be self-flagellating about the Crusades when this multicultural experiment hits a tipping point and our democracy is used to destroy the best thing the human race has managed to come up with: freedom and individual liberty. As I said, it is the people who make the country, especially in a democracy. Hamas, the Palestinian terror group that has in its charter to destroy the state of Israel and kill all Jews, look it up, was democratically elected. The Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt was democratically elected. Democracy will not save us from destroying our society. Riddle me this. If you are still not convinced, we are on a dangerous path. If you took all the people of Palestine or Iraq and put them in Britain, what do you think would happen? Would they be like, "Phew, now we're free from Western imperialism in our homeland. Let us Sunni and Shia hug it out and live in prosperous tolerance and peace"? Don't be foolish. We already know from Pew data that around 90% want Sharia law and 50% want it imposed for all Muslims and non-Muslims alike. Bye-bye women's rights? Oh, you were raped? Hope you've got several male witnesses to corroborate your story. Oh, you're gay? Hope you like it rough because we've got some lashes coming for you. Or maybe you'd like to accompany me to the top of this tall building. You'd have to be self-deluding to the nth degree if you do not concede that completely swapping out the UK population for a Muslim-majority country would not be a catastrophic backward step for women's rights, gay rights, and human freedom in general. So what on earth makes you think that mass migration from these cultures is a wise move? Instead of a rapid cultural death that would come from a complete swap, we are encouraging a slow, protracted demise that I believe will happen if we continue to allow immigration at the same rates that we've got at the moment from these types of countries, with these particular cultural values, not races. There's been immigration into the UK and Europe from India and other countries that don't have majority Muslim populations, and they've integrated beautifully, absolutely beautifully. Of course there were some teething problems, but, it went majorly pretty well, it went well. Okay, time for another caveat. Not all. My Muslim friend in vet school didn't want Sharia. We're talking numbers here, people. Not all, not all, not all. And I'm far from anti-asylum, if you're wondering. But boy, do we need a serious screening process and a prioritisation process. I'm all for giving asylum to people in genuine need, but please, can we prioritise the free thinkers, the minorities within these countries, such as gay Muslims, trans Muslims, and persecuted religious minorities like the Yazidis and other Christian dhimmis, Jews, and children in genuine danger? Why is it that the majority of people in the migration crisis were and are fighting-age young men? Where are their elderly, their women and children, the most vulnerable people in these societies? It seems a bit fishy to me. We have a right as sovereign nations to not just let everybody in. We have a responsibility to the people in the actual country. That the elected officials have a responsibility to the people that elected them, to look after them, to look after their poor, to look after their homeless. Obviously we need to have some asylum because we're a giving people. We care. It's important, but it shouldn't be at the complete sacrifice of the other people in the country that have actually lived here for a long time and elected these people to govern them. We inherited this society from our forebears, and yes, there was blood and slavery and filth and shame to get here, but we have something precious and worthwhile protecting. How dare the elites who run our countries, and how dare we as voters turn our nose up at this gift and throw it into the crapper? We had the luck to be born into such a comparatively safe, free culture, and instead of gently taking the baton and carrying it carefully on for the next generation to enjoy, we're snivelling at it, spitting on it, and chucking it in the dirt. It's shameful. Our pitiful inability to discuss these issues honestly is also leading to a reactionary rise of the far right. This rise is mirroring the recent rise of the far left and their immense power and grip on our society. Making it a race issue and calling everyone a racist when it's clearly a culture issue and a religious issue is bound to make some people getting the racist finger pointed at them, namely the far right and white people, react back in the same identitarian manner. Here I am, and here you are, sitting in the middle of this mess. Let's hope cooler heads will prevail, and we're not headed for a war here. I'm not holding my breath. Mache out.